What's going on, everybody? Today we're going to be talking about Valheim. I've been sort of struggling with this game, and it wasn't really like a struggle in terms of like the game was hard or anything like that. It was more like I didn't understand the hype, and I didn't really get the idea of why this game was making so many waves and why people were getting so hyped about it. And I even asked a question to you guys: what's going on here? Why is this game getting so much attention? And I didn't understand how this was gaining so many hype or so much hype whenever there was games like Ark, Conan, and all these other insert survival games. And I finally get it. I actually get it. After playing for a good amount of hours by myself and with friends, this game, you have to think about it in the perspective of this is a $20 game, and it's giving you somewhat of a $40 to $60 experience, which is pretty impressive. Ark Survival Evolved, for example, right? That is a $52 game right now on Steam with tax, I think. It's something on the lines of that. I just bought it for my cousin the other day, and it was about 50 bucks, and that's just for the base game. Granted, it does come with a lot of content like, you know, Valgero, Ragnarok, the Center. These maps are cool and everything. I like it. I genuinely like it. But, this is a game that is a few years old now, and it didn't exactly have the best launch experience, and it also is from a company known to do some freaky stuff. So the fact that this game is still $50 is rather insane. Not to mention they're still selling DLC for about 20 bucks a pop. So you're looking at like upwards of 100 bucks for the full package here, which is fine, I guess. I'm not super against it because it is a lot of content. However, like I said, this is from a few years now, and this, in comparison to Valheim, you can kind of see where I'm going with this. In no way, shape, or form am I saying Valheim is better than Ark, because that would be a bit of a far cry in my opinion. However, I will say it does come pretty damn close to offering a pretty enjoyable experience on the same level. I think Valheim's biggest shortcoming right now is the combat is a little whack, and on top of that, I don't think there's enough content to support a higher price point currently. And you also have to think of it from the perspective of this is an entry-level survival game. Whenever you look at all the survival aspects like, you know, food, water, and, you know, weather conditions and stuff like that, it's not that invasive as something like No Man's Sky, which is like, you walk outside and you're burning immediately. Or Ark, you have, you know, you got to manage water, you got to manage food, you got to manage weather, you got to manage your dino's food and stuff like that. There's a lot to manage in Ark. So that's a lot to ask a person that's maybe new to survival games, whereas Valheim, you have to just manage a little bit of food and some shelter, and that's realistically it. You just put some clothes on your back and you're good to go. That is very entry level in my opinion, and if you're just wanting to get started with Valheim, this makes a lot of sense as to why this is making waves, because maybe a lot of people that are looking to get into survival games, this is a very, very accessible point where you can hop in, not be completely overwhelmed with a bunch of garbage. Granted, tutorial, not exactly the best thing, but it could be a lot worse. Let's be realistic. We've seen worse. Not only that, but Valheim even seems to top actual games that are AAA titles. I'm gonna say it. This game is better than No Man's Sky. I don't care what you think. Valheim is way more fun than fucking No Man's Sky. I'm sorry, it just is. I'm not here to argue the whole ordeal, but that's just my opinion. I genuinely believe Valheim has more value than No Man's Sky. Every time I go back to No Man's Sky, I play for an hour and I'm like, I'm dead already. And then when I play Valheim, I just kept going and going. I want to play more, start a new character, learn more stuff. And it's just a constant state of like fighting and understanding the game and learning everything. With No Man's Sky, it's just a snore fest within like the first hour. Anyway, this is not the point of the video, right? But I'm trying to explain the idea of how Valheim is getting a lot of this hype and why some people may be struggling to understand it, because maybe they're coming from a privileged point as to why would I play Valheim when I have a game like Ark or Conan? And that's where you're thinking about it too much, right? You're essentially just getting another survival game. It's not like Valheim reinvents the wheel or anything like that. That's not the whole point of the game. It's not changing anything at all. It is doing the same thing that all these other games do. Manage your water, build a house, look cool, style on people, kill enemies, survive. It's your standard survival experience, but for a $20 price point, and it's somewhat polished to a degree that actually makes sense and price for performance matches up. Not to mention, it seems to be more accessible to a lot of people considering the price, and also it's not super invasive like most other survival games. So I think this one, much like Outward, very much carries that whole entry-level survivor kind of instinct. You know, it scratches a lot of itches for people that are, you know, looking for a cool thing. It's got Vikings, which that's dope. Granted, for me, I'm not exactly super into the whole mythological side of Vikings. I'm more like the raiding and war type thing. That's sort of my ordeal. So I'm not a super huge fan of this one. I kind of wish it was more on the lines of Conan, where there's a bunch of, NPC villages, and you can recruit, NPCs to your village, and then, raid other villages and just kind of go to war constantly. I think that would be pretty cool. However, maybe that's some content for later down the line. But even still, with the mythical side of things, it seems to be pretty good. There's a lot of lore hidden within the whole game. And I think people that are really into that whole mythos type situation, that you want to know more about the gods, or you just want to know more about the game in general, there's a lot of stuff that you can read and explore and look around and actually figure out what's going on here. Another interesting aspect is the music. I think the absolute soundtrack of this is hard as fuck. This game is great. I did not like the opening music because every time I open the game, it just blares in my ear and just blows out my drums. But the point being is the music is still fire. I just wish it would, tone it down a little bit, please. Moving past that, we also have bosses within the game. The very first boss is quite easy to beat, but it's pretty epic and the music behind it is great. Not to mention the mechanics of the boss fight as well are pretty good. You actually have to dodge, you have to, do substantial maneuvers in order to deal with this giant deer creature. It's pretty cool. It actually gives you a sense of progression, and as if you're doing something that is working towards beating the game. And there's, from what I understand, a few bosses that you can deal with, and like I said, the world is massive. So there's a lot to discover, there's a lot to destroy, there's a lot to plunder. I hope they continue with just the content train, because right now they're actually killing it. They're genuinely like killing the game right now. I think once the game is fully fleshed out, if they add a bit more of that like Viking sternness, where you actually go out and raid and stuff, and you go to villages and just, plunder and stuff like that, I think that would be cool. It doesn't even have to be like human villages or anything like that, but if you can allow me to tame demons or, capture whatever and then just turn them into, vassals or something on the lines of that, that would be pretty cool. I just want more options for war. And also, I really would like for them to open community servers up to the public, because right now, I really don't like the fact that I have to have friends to play this game. PvE is always great. 1000%, it is always great. However, the option for PvP should be there. So create maybe a tab that has PvP sections where you can set that as a server and people can join in, and maybe up the server count to 25, maybe even 30, and just let a bunch of tribes, join in, and they can just go at it, go to war. I mean, once you get tired of killing all these monsters and farming up all these creatures, I mean, you're going to want to go to war, let's be honest. I know there may be a lot of balancing issues and stuff like that may be a little wonky, and they may have to figure out how to work around the boss system, because, obviously if there's multiple tribes on one server, how are they going to, take out the bosses, right? There's people going to be fighting over the bosses left and right, and there's going to be gankers ganking the bosses and, making things kind of hell, right? Like if there's an alpha tribe, they're going to be really annoying. So essentially, there has to be some kind of reset, or I don't know, maybe a server wipe perhaps, or maybe there has to be multiple locations for a boss to just kind of allow a little bit of freedom between servers, or not servers, but tribes. But at the same time, this is way later down the line. I'm just hoping that PvP becomes a bit more prevalent, because I do think that Vikings and PvP, that kind of goes hand in hand, bro. Anyway, this was not really a review of Valheim. It was just merely explaining my, thought process behind the game. I still need to play a bit more and just go and beat the game fully and kill more bosses. But right now, I'm having a lot of fun with it. If you guys want me to start a open server, maybe I'll do a post and put a password up for publicly, and you guys can just join in. And maybe we'll just go to war, PvP, stuff like that. Man, I don't know. We'll see what happens. But anyway, that's it for today's video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.